Hi and welcome to my channel. Sorry about the clickbait title, or maybe I'm not quite as sorry as all that. I am going to put on my flameproof underwear. I am going to prepare myself in some quarters to be Captain Unpopular. And I'm going to question this reliance we all seem to have in the YouTube community on shooting wide open, on bokeh. And if you stick with me to the end of this video, I'll give you a tip that I think will improve your photography far more than just opening up your lens and shooting wide open. Let's get into it. It's pretty ironic that in an era when modern technology means we can have more control of depth of field than ever before, with focus stacking, live view screens, etc., we so often just open the lens to full bore and blast away. I mean, it's not really surprising. We're bombarded on YouTube with assurances that this or that lens is fine to shoot wide open all day. All day. Why would we want to limit ourselves to just doing that? Firstly, let me qualify things by saying I really don't hate blurry backgrounds. Shooting wide open is a legitimate photographic trick, just like any other. Wide-angle perspective, vanishing points, rule of thirds, etc. They're all tricks to lead the viewer's eye into the bit of the picture that you've decided is important. Tricks to help you unfold the story within your frame. Background blur can look awesome, but it can also look contrived and pointless. You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, so the saying goes, and you can't make an uninteresting subject and a poor composition a winner simply by shooting it at f1.4. What I am convinced of is that a great many YouTubers and Instagram snappers are way too over-reliant on the blurry stuff. It's become a sort of mantra. You must separate, isolate your subject, leaving the background a smooth and blended, impressionistic, painterly mush. We even get our panties in a bunch about background blur being busy. What, as opposed to idle or lazy perhaps? f1.8 isn't wide enough for them. No, it has to be f1.4 or even f1.2, shot with a nifty 50. By the way, who came up with that term? They clearly have the same mindset as YouTubers who shout, "What's up?" at the beginning of a video, and then progress their content at the speed of someone who's cornered the amphetamine market. Okay, so I'm coming over as a grumpy old man shouting at clouds. Well, they kind of do blur stuff, don't they, clouds? But if you look at the work of the great photographers of the past, you don't see much f1.2 stuff going on. Cartier-Bresson, Imogen Cunningham, Irving Penn, you really didn't see much bokeh there. Most of the time, having to use a larger aperture was seen, in fact, as an emergency measure by a large number of professional and serious amateur photographers. What you did see was composition and viewpoint used to balance or unbalance parts of the frame, to put the weight of an image where you, the photographer, wants it. Not, I might venture, where the mechanical and optical and these days electronic bits make it fall without the intervention of the snapper's thinking brain. It's super easy to make visual candy floss images that don't really evoke any emotion. Just open up your lens and isolate. It's far more difficult to select foreground and background objects and planes that actually work together to create atmosphere. What I'm suggesting here is photographic intention. What I mean by that is not simply applying a one-size-fits-all trick, a bit like sticking a beauty filter on an iPhone image, but really thinking our way through the composition, knowing what we want to achieve before we raise the camera to our eye, and then applying our knowledge to turn that vision into a photograph. You hear folks condemn the Micro Four Thirds digital format because it's more difficult to get shallow depth of field. Well, compared to the 5x7 images I shoot regularly, even 35mm full frame is minuscule, and its depth of field hugely wide, even full open. It's all relative. In fact, I think this way of thinking of shallow depth of field as being the king has seeped over from videography. what with many of us being hybrid shooters now. The irony of this is if you analyse a number of modern feature films, and old ones too, you won't actually find many blurry backgrounds. Backgrounds just thrown a little out is far more common, not full-on highlight soup. What you will find is attention to composition, super deliberate lighting effects, and subtle use of focus to highlight the order of importance of things in the scene. Once again, I'm not against background blur. I use it myself quite often, but I also try to use other techniques as well. Have those wide aperture lenses? Sure, they're super useful. Just don't think that opening up your lens automatically makes you a photographer and your image is artistic. It doesn't. So, I promised you a technique that would transform your photography 10 times more than shooting wide open. And here it is. It's really simple. Cut yourself a cardboard frame, the same ratio as the image format you're using, and carry it with you. Then hold it up in front of you and practice composing scenes. You can't rely on blur because your cardboard frame doesn't have that option. Now there's also an iPhone app, and probably an Android one too, called Viewfinder, that actually allows you to do this on your phone, showing lens focal lengths and how the change of viewpoint, etc. can alter your composition. Now, when you're happy with the composition, either on your phone or with your pieces of cardboard, get your real camera out and shoot. You can use a small aperture to shoot with if that's what the photo needs, or a large one, but you won't have been simply blindly applying a formula that your photograph simply might not need. There's a lot to be said for learning to see and compose clearly before you start learning how to blur reality. Well, there you have it. And to show my real lack of bias as far as the blurry stuff's concerned, I have here my lovely Samyang 85mm f1.4 lens, and it's mounted on this beautiful nickel matte EL from the 1970s, and I'm going to be reviewing that in the next couple of weeks alongside one of its chief competitors, so look out for that one. So if you've enjoyed this video, perhaps you'll think about hitting the like button and maybe turn on notifications so that you'll know when my next videos are up. If you really want to see some more of my content, then please think about subscribing, because I really want to get this channel up to the 3,000 subscribers. It'll really make my day. Also, don't forget, I have a Patreon account with a link in the description, and on that you can find quite a bit of stuff that's not on YouTube, and I'm adding to it all the time. Also, if you want to buy me a coffee, well, there's a link for that as well, and I get through a hell of a lot of the stuff. Anyway, until I see you again, keep those lenses either wide open or stop down, and keep taking pictures. Then perhaps you'll take a look at my Patreon page, which is in the link to which is sort of culmination of a whole lot of bollocks that I'm currently talking. Then perhaps you'll think of subscribing.